David Collins, Chief Executive of LSIS. I think the main thing was the need for a real transformational change in the way in which colleges in particular relate to the local communities. It's bringing on board all that resource in the community to fill the gap where resources will not be forthcoming from central government. So the partnership arrangements between colleges and their communities and how that can be developed was the most interesting point for me. I think the change of priorities, the change of thinking from considering we shouldn't be thinking about changing public services or improving public services, we should be thinking about changing lives and how public services can contribute as part of a wider resource to doing that.
I'm Polly Toynbee, I'm a columnist for The Guardian and I'm chair of this conference. We face at the moment horrendous cuts such as nobody's seen since the last war, such as nobody alive has ever administered. If they're even half as bad as that, it's still going to be a remarkable change for almost everybody in the public sector. Most of the people working in the public sector now have seen time of continual growth. And I think listening to people discussing how they think they're going to cope with that, how they think they can reorganize, how perhaps they can even be productive and find better ways of working collaboratively with others to reduce the effects of those cuts. That I thought was really inspiring and interesting.
Tony Alderman, I'm Chair of Governors at Barnet College. What today, the whole challenge of working together in a different role, rather than being talked down to, that it's let be an opportunity for people locally to come up with fresh ideas and to innovate. I think it's a tremendous challenge because society is used to be talked down to, for government to do everything and for people locally not to do it. But here's an opportunity for people actually to have an input, and that's going to be a big shock. It's like telling your teenage daughter she has a view and you will listen.
I'm Ray Faulkner, Chair of South Staffordshire College and also a member of the AOC board. Interesting today was the use of technology in terms of drilling down into the public transparency and actually not taking for granted the fact you can't do it, but go ahead and do it, which is something that I've always had a tenet for. You don't need to ask permission, just ask forgiveness once you've done it. And the other is the way that people are actually seeing the transformation from being a prescriptive sector to one that is actually going to determine its own future.
I'm Lynn Sedgemore, the Executive Director of the 157 group of large FE colleges. I think for me it was the issue of how do we change organisational form, which we just touched on really, but it was also very much about the nature of productivity into the future and how we deal with that, and looking at a range of different kinds of competencies that leaders will need for the future in terms of ensuring more customer empowerment and engagement in a very strict fiscal environment.
I'm Alan Tuckett, I'm the Director of NIAS, which is National Institute of Adult Continuing Education. I think that we have to reimagine public services so that we not only focus on what we can deliver through paid professionals, but what we can secure with the help of paid professionals, so that the use of volunteers, of citizen autonomous activities supported by the state, the balance of what you do with any budget is how much leverage can you get. And there are things you can only do through the state, and I thought that came out very well. And that, I mean, from all the speakers, the need to work as creatively as we can across boundaries to subvert the silos which rather cripple the use of public money. But I thought there's just as much continuing need to help a government that wants to devolve resources and responsibility to the ground. There's still a need to influence them about what works and what needs to be tomorrow's agenda.
Well, I think that very much the discussion with the individuals around the table, particularly about the difference between different local stakeholders. I think Alison Birkinshaw particularly, I thought, articulated that very well, because what she was really saying is there are so many different stakeholders. Will the local economic partnerships that we referred to actually determine what happens in colleges, because they might be quite dominated by older people sometimes and by employers, whereas students need to have a very strong voice as well. So I think there's quite an issue around, who gets to determine what is a priority at local level. My personal view is that the students should have a very strong voice. Anything said that I would challenge? I think probably in terms of the notion about needing to have harder federations and certain types of collaborations as maybe the only way forward. I think that they may offer some partial solutions, but I think we have got to start with what's going to work for the locality and for the community and the students. And out of that, if coincidentally, federation, merger, different types of collaboration enable us to do that, then great. But I certainly don't think they're an end in themselves. Well, I think it'll just reinforce my own view that we need to work fast to prepare for the changes that the funding will bring about, and more particularly we need to be more vociferous, I think, in terms of making sure that people know the consequences of funding reductions on the lives of students and communities, and we probably need to be more articulate in making sure that people understand what this could mean if we got it wrong.